All right, everybody, thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm excited about this topic. I've actually been looking forward to this quite a bit. But before I get started, if anybody has any kind of issues throughout today's webinar, please let me know using your little chat box on the side. That would help me out a whole lot. There should be a little question panel, and you can ask a little question in there. If any kind of issue comes up, you're having a hard time hearing me, something's cutting out, the screen's not sharing, something like that, please let me know because, obviously these things are very susceptible to glitches, especially when so many people are using this technology. But anyways, let's get back to the topic. I'm super excited about this. Today we're talking digital distribution with Appulate. Today's webinar is meant for our MGA and carriers. This is all about digital distribution and how you can use Appulate to do that. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. But first, real quick, some webinar logistics. Everyone's going to be muted today, but again, if you have any kind of questions, please feel free to use that little question panel on the side. I'll be monitoring that throughout the entire webinar, so if you have any questions, I will see it pop up. Don't feel like you're rude. Go ahead and type something in, and I'll answer it as much as I can. And then at the end, I'll also have some time dedicated for us to just a little Q&A back and forth. This will be recorded, and I'll put this on YouTube. So if you have to drop off, if there's an issue, this will be recorded, so you will be able to watch it later. And I'll shoot an email out to everybody who joined today. So first, real quick, who's Appulate? If someone's joining today and you're not familiar with who Appulate is and what we do, here's a nice long blurb. You can read this later if you'd like to, but in a nutshell, we automate the entire submission process for agents, MGAs, and carriers. We allow a streamlined and standardized platform that could be used in so many different ways. So no matter what kind of technology you use, whether you have your own portal for intake of submissions, you need a portal, you're looking for something to just drive data from an agency management system or a cord form into a system that you're using. Appulate does all of these things, and we focus specifically on the submission process. I call it the submission management system for that very reason, because we don't do policy admin stuff. We're not an agency management system, but we do a ton of stuff in our system, which you'll see a little bit today. Complete automation and data migration from any agency management system or cord into a completely automated process, automating underwriting, quoting, binding, a number of different things. We're even able to utilize APIs and other stuff too. So I'll go into all of that a little bit later, but hopefully that gives you kind of a nice high-level perspective of what we do and who we are. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that we do, but one of the biggest things about working with Appulate is not just the technology, it's just the fact that we've been around so long and we've had such a big impact on this industry that we've got now the largest network of agents in the country by a pretty good margin too. We've got about 80% of all retail agents in the country using Appulate in some way or another. So this may be on a daily basis, it may be every now and then. It really depends on the markets that are available in Appulate. And we work with hundreds of different carriers and MGAs, but that's why we see this as a partnership. And this is kind of all leading up to this conversation today about distribution, because one of the most effective ways to do that is to make sure that we're working together with our carrier and MGA partners to provide both really good technology and awesome products out there. If we can do both of those things, agent utilization is super high. We're able to move your products and programs out to this huge network of agents, and everyone's happy. A couple other things on this slide deck that I wanted to kind of mention, and we'll go into a little bit here in a little while. Of course, like I said, we have the largest network of agents, about 250 to 270,000 agents in the system, all have accounts, and again, kind of use it in various different ways. But we do have a very active agent network too. So to give you kind of an idea, out of all of those agents, there are about 5 different ways that an agent can subscribe to hear information about Appulate, whether it's tech updates, new features, and et cetera, et cetera. One of them is to hear from our partners, to be able to hear about new products and programs on our platform. And I'm going to go into the various ways that we communicate all of that. But just to give you an idea, there's about 80,000 subscribers just to that list. I think that, we started with over 100,000, and over the many years of doing this, Of course, that gets whittled down and we add people and subtract people. But currently right now, I know we've got well over that number, which is very exciting. We also do very strategic agency outreach. And I'll go into the various ways we do this, but this is very important. We don't like to spam agents. We don't like to just do a bunch of junk emails or anything like that. We pay very close attention to all of this. We wouldn't be anything without having a large agent network of users. So we want to respect them. And one of the reasons that they're subscribing is because they love our system. They love what we do, and they want to work with new markets that are on board. So of course, they're just as excited about digital distribution as you are. It's just a matter of kind of putting all the pieces together. We also have an automated and standardized workflow, which I alluded to earlier. This is really important because this is one of the things that agents ask for us the most. They get really frustrated that every time they've got to work with a new market, it's a different process. And that's very normal, but if they have to learn a brand new technology, it's harder to get them to do that. So Appulate has centered our technology around the agent, how the agent functions, and one of those really important things is to try to create some kind of standardization. So no matter where that agent starts, we can meet them there, tech-wise or otherwise. If they've got an Accord form agency management system, they don't have anything and they need to start inputting it into our system, we can use OCR to capture scan forms and faxed forms. It doesn't matter where the agent starts. We can meet them there and then automate and standardize the entire process, even if you have a different kind of portal that you want to connect to, even if your programs are unique, even if requirements are different. None of that really matters. Appulate does create a nice data bridge that moves things from point A to point B that is more or less exactly the same every time for an agent. So they're more inclined to use it. And the training is a lot less. So if you're looking for a portal, you're in the market to try to use some kind of service to move data around, one of the biggest difficulties or challenges is to try to get agent adoption. So beyond just distribution, you could get this out to all 250,000 people, but to get them to use it is a very entirely different thing. And of course, that's something we put a lot of focus into. Accessibility to new markets. I'll show you the various ways that agents can find you, how they can go into the system and find new programs and products and markets they want to deal with, and just how simple and easy that is. We also support instant indications in our system. This is not just rating indications, which we do, but also appetite guide indications. We'll be able to build your appetite guide into our system so agents know in real time after they've uploaded that data whether or not this is something that you want to write, what kind of requirements you need before you're able to write it or quote it, and then of course instantly give them rating indications or quotes if you have that capability, which I mentioned here on the last bullet point, and this includes API connectivity as well. So let's keep going. I noticed a few people joined. Just by the way, in case you missed the first part, the only thing I went over was the little question tab on the side. So please feel free to use that to ask any questions throughout the entire presentation. We're going to go through a lot of different slides. I'll go do a little demonstration of our system. Again, I'm not going to think you're rude if you ask a question. I'm going to constantly monitor that, and then we'll have some time at the end. So to kind of hit a couple points, I know I mentioned a few of these things, and in fact, I've got to update this slide because it has 240,000 users on here. And like I said, I think we're up to about 270,000 now. It's about 30,000 or so agencies, possibly more. And based on a third-party analysis of that in the industry, it's about 80% of all retail agents in the country. Like I said, we've got about 80,000 subscribed to an email list specifically just to hear about new companies that are on board with us. So that's really important. And right now we've got about 17,000 submissions being processed every month across dozens of different lines of business and hundreds of different markets. Currently, about 140% is our continuous increase of new market selection. And what that is every time an agent goes into our system and they select a new market to work with, we track that. We track a lot of data in our system so that, you know, again, there's a level of transparency, which you'll notice during the slide deck. We'll go through a lot of data and how these agents interact with us. This is important because we want to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible. We do see our customers as partners. This is not a thing that we build and just hand to you and say, we'll see you later. This is something that we want to make sure we're hand in hand on throughout our contract together. So regardless of how you work with us, we want to make sure it's very successful for both of us. And the biggest way to do that is digital distribution. And 240% is our average submission count increase. So what that means is anytime we have a partner in our platform and they're pushing this workflow, we're pushing this workflow, on average, we see a little over double the submission count increase. And of course, I can't promise that because we have no way to control how you pay commissions and what your products are like and how you write those products. But we can put a lot of effort into making sure that they understand how to use the technology, they have the training they need, we're engaging with these agents, doing a number of things to make sure that the agents feel heard, our technology works to make their lives easier and more inclined to submit. And because we do that and we put out a lot of great marketing and information to our agents, we do see a nice submission count increase regardless of how active you are in putting that out to their agents. Of course, the more you can do, the better. I mean, I've seen some partners of ours who put in a lot of effort, a lot of work into getting this information out to agents, inspiring them to use this system, and then of course educating them on it. And I'll see it go up to 3 or 5x depending on what lines of business that they write. So let's keep on trucking. So let's talk about the workflows real quick. Of course, this is not what today's necessarily about, but I want to add a bit of context around what we're discussing today in case you're not familiar with what Appulate does. So there's two primary workflows that Appulate tends to squeeze into. And one of the things I really like about Appulate, as being somebody who's actually a former customer of Appulate, is the adaptability to what Appulate does. So I think the engineers here are fantastic. Dmitry Nikolain is our CTO, and he is just a mad scientist. So if there's any kind of situation you feel like, well, this is a little weird, this is unique, I've got some old technology, whatever it is, let's talk about it, because odds are there's a way to do it, and there's a way to do it cost effectively. Nothing we do is cookie cutter, even though we do add a level of standardization. Everything we do is geared around you, what your workflow is. We try to find ways to make it better and meet you where your technology is. So A2x is our first way of doing that. This is where we started 15 years ago. We still do this, and it really just stands for Accord to XML. So all we're doing is we're bridging data from any Accord form out there. Doesn't matter which one it is. I think we now have the most extensive library that's available. So it doesn't matter how that agent's starting or what Accord form they have. They can bridge data directly into our system. We're able to convert that in real time into XML, send that XML to you along with that agent, automatically logging them in to your system, where then they can see their data mapped out in a matter of seconds. So let's quickly take a look at what that process is like. So I've gotten an Accord form up right now, and all I have to do is hit print. I would have downloaded a print driver called Appulate Uplink, which I'll select and then hit print. What that's going to do is start bridging that data directly over to Appulate after I log in. I've saved my login credentials, so I don't have to do that every time. And it's going to open up Appulate. So I should get to a screen where it verifies the line of business. That's important. So they've got it right. Let's hit continue. And now I've got a screen here for my demo. Let me go ahead and select Arrowhead for this demo. They've got a portal outside of Appulate. We're partnered, and we're able to move that data over in real time. This is our A2x process. So I've started with an Accord form, gone into Appulate. It would automatically send. It will just validate what's here, and now it should automatically log me in and map out all this information. Yeah, so great. So now all I have to do is go through this process like I normally would. Just of course not having to key anything in, filling out any requirements that you have inside your portal and moving forward. A lot of folks will use this both externally and internally. And of course, this is really just to make sure that there's no repetitive data entry, there's no extra time needed to move data from point A to point B. A lot of companies will invest in outsourcing data entry, or they'll have people on staff that do this. And now with this technology, it's just no longer practical. So you've got a way that you can hit a button and data moves pretty much just instantaneously. So it can't be faster than that. And my joke has always been, how fast can you process 100 accord forms. It may take you a day or two, and depending if you're outsourcing it, it might be shorter. I can do it probably in about 5 minutes, just because it doesn't take that much time. I can bridge data over instantly, and our system is able to capture that and map it out in extreme time. So let me move back now and open up my PowerPoint again. Hang on one second. So I want to talk about our other workflow here. So let me, there we go. Fantastic. So our other workflow here includes our custom portal, and this seems to be where everybody's kind of going to now. Even if they have their own portal, we have a number of carriers, for instance, who've developed APIs and let those sit in our portal, so that they've got still their portal and they've got the Appulate portal. So regardless of where that agent is or what their preference is, they have two really great avenues to go to enter that data and get that quote from you. And the way this works is it encompasses both what we just went over, but instead of going into your portal, it goes into the Appulate interface, where they're able to see within seconds if it matches your appetite guide, what kind of questions need to be answered in our smart questionnaire, which adapts in real time based on the data they put in. So there's no requirements for asking too many questions or too little questions. If someone puts that they have a restaurant in Indiana, and because they put in a restaurant class code, it needs to ask them follow-up questions, our system will do that in real time. So they don't see hundreds of questions, but rather just the ones that need to be answered. So of course, you can see why agents would be really thrilled about that. Of course, we went through instant indications and why that's important. We can automate the appointment process and signature process, and even all the way through to binding. So agents that are very familiar with our portal, again, there's a lot of them. They really like this process. It's very simple for them, and there's a lot of transparency. Once they complete the process within our system, there are a number of things you can do. Everything can be, of course, exported via XML, just like that first process. So if you want to take Accord XML, take that into a back-end system, policy admin system, some kind of rating or reporting system, you're able to do that. Of course, we have a rating system built into our portal and every report you could probably think of, but a lot of folks do like to have that data, and it would be accessible. So that's the way this process works. And so let's take a quick look again at that process. So again, same exact thing on the front end. All we're going to do is upload this information directly from an Accord or agency management system. And now this time, after we verify the line of business, I'm going to take it directly into Appulate. So in this case, they would land directly in our system, where they would see now all their data mapped out right here. Everything from their Accord form is now here. All they have to do is select you as a market. So in this case, I'll use like a fake MGA account. And again, in real time, based on the markets that they select, it's going to tell them exactly what questions need to be answered, how many questions need to be answered, instant indications of pricing, and if this has been accepted or declined. So this has been declined. So I can see right away, okay, this is a past expiration date. This shows you how long I've been using this Accord form. So let me go ahead and change this to tomorrow, which makes sense. So let's go ahead and go through this now. So everything is now accepted, except for now I need to answer extra questions. I know it's accepted because I've got an A here. I know it's not ready because it's not quite green yet. So I need to answer these questions before I'm able to submit, attach any documents that you've noted they need to attach, and move forward. For MGAs, this is very interesting because we can use both separate carrier requirements under each carrier that you work with, which is why different carriers are showing up underneath your name, but also your requirements as well. So if you're not licensed in Texas, even if AmTrust writes in Texas, that's not going to override what you do. So you'll be able to guide those restrictions. And for a carrier, same kind of thing, including through APIs. So if you have an API, you would be able to control this on the back end. But again, another reason why we see this as a partnership and why we know that we have to grow together, if things change throughout a term of contract where you require different questions, your appetite guide changes, we know how to react to that very quickly and can adapt this. So if you don't have an API, you still can have the benefits of what that would kind of be like, except for we would be helping you make those changes. So in this case, it's declined because FEIN has already been reserved. I've used this before, so I can just change that very quickly. Let's see if that'll work. Great, awesome. I also have the ability to select and unselect different markets. So again, if I have a direct appointment with one of these carriers, I can unselect them and that'll let that MGA know, hey, we're good to go on that. You don't need to submit to AmTrust. So now I would work through this like I normally would, answering any questions that may exist, upload any kind of forms that may need to be uploaded. All of our questions are built based on your requirements, customizable. This entire process is customizable. Once they're ready to submit, they hit the submit button, and then we're going to take them through a process. Depending on your requirements, it may be a little bit different. So some folks will allow all of this to happen, have more of an open brokerage model where they can get a real-time quote, or they can submit directly to that market without having to be appointed or doing anything. So before even being appointed with this market or even talking to this market, I know exactly what questions need to be answered. I've been able to map out all my data. I can see what the pricing indications are if we're able to pull rates or use the rates that you guys have. We can build something together for them to see. They can get a quote, they can do all of these things. And then typically by the time they hit bind or request to bind, it's going to take them through an appointment process if they aren't appointed with you, where they can do all of that, sign any kind of paperwork, sign anything corresponding to this submission, and then move forward with binding. We have a lot of folks that don't do it that way, where they will request a certain amount of information, we'll take that information back, export the data, quote it in some other system, upload the quote here, and now they're done. No matter what the process is, again, it doesn't make any difference. The agent's going to see pretty much the exact same thing. At some point, they're going to submit, and then it's going to guide them through it, or they're going to get notified that a quote has been uploaded. Either way, should be very fast, and there's a lot less touching that's involved here. So this is a great system. Again, a lot of folks use this, even carriers with their own portals. A number of APIs have now been connected recently. This seems to be very popular right now, including folks like AmTrust, Hiscox Employers, Liberty Travelers, all of these folks we now have connectivity to their API, among other ones I haven't named. Now, if you ever want to see a list of that, you can go right actually to our website. Let me show you where that is. We're going to take a detour here. If you go right to our page, go to Producer Connect. This is where an agent would go if they wanted to find new markets to work with. This is one of the places they can go. They can scroll down and go to our market directory. Of course, you can do this as well. And I'll wait for this to come up. This is being a bit slow right now. But either way, what I'm trying to show you here while we wait for this to come up is how an agent's able to find you as a market. Now, I'll go back and kind of explain that process, that workflow process is more than just an automated submission process. Because I can see so much and there's so much visibility of what your requirements are, what your appetite guide looks like, it's a really effective way for agents to look for new markets. It's one of their favorite features, according to some polling that we've done. So one of the biggest benefits of that is, of course, if I'm an agent and I go, I've got this restaurant in Riskin, Texas, and I want to write this, I want to call my market and ask them if they're going to take this, or I can Google some places. It's a lot of time that's unnecessary. I can hit a couple buttons. I can select a bunch of different markets, or maybe I got an email from you, or I saw an Appulate press release that says, hey, we just brought AmTrust on board, and they love writing restaurants with 5 to 10 employees. Let's see what you got. And so they can upload that information in real time, see if that will match based on all of the information that they've uploaded, which of course no underwriter could sit and do in that amount of time. So of course that's a big deal for agents. So now that this is up, you could go to this page, should you have to get there. If you need this link, let me know. And we were doing workers' comp. So if I go to workers' comp, I can go there immediately and I can see all the different markets that we work with. We have links that can take you to a landing page so that they can learn more about you. They understand how you're working with us by these names here. So Appulate means that they are following that Appulate process. That second part, e-submission, is that A to X process, that first one, where you've got a portal outside of our system, but we're still bridging things over. Still really super helpful for agents. And then of course we also build WebLink, which this is actually something we've built for people we have not partnered yet with, and we've gotten some kind of interest from our agents who say, hey, look, we really need to be able to have this technology for market X over here, and they've got their own portal. Can you map that out? And the answer is yes. So we can instantly log them in, use a browser plugin to autofill any of the fields in that portal, moving that data across. This is also used a lot by MGAs and wholesalers, of course. So we'll bring somebody on who has 10, 15 different carriers, build out a number of these web links so that whoever's working on that deal, once you get the information in for that quote, you can send it out to all of these carriers in a matter of minutes, which is obviously a big deal. If you're a carrier on this call and you see your name on there, this means that somebody's paying for connectivity to your services. So you're certainly somebody we should be talking to, because one of the things we can do is if you're able to license this, we can offer this to MGAs and retail agents totally for free. So all of that connectivity does not have to be licensed by that agent or MGA, which it would currently if we're not partnered. So that's a big deal. So currently right now, if you're an MGA or you have retail agents who are looking to use this, it doesn't cost anything for retail agents, and it doesn't cost anything for MGAs to use this with markets that we're working with. There are still licensing fees, and there's probably a number of things we're going to have to customize. But if someone builds out an API, let's say AmTrust's API is now in here, employers, and you want to submit workers' comp to them, we can add that on there. You don't have to pay anything for that API integration. You don't have to pay anything for being able to extend those capabilities to your agents either. So that's huge. All right, so let me close this back down. We'll open the slide deck back up. By the way, if you do want a more thorough demo of this system, please let me know and we can certainly do that. Other available workflows, we've talked about API integration, emailed submissions we're able to do. Our system does create all the forms needed and can send it out. We do rate quote bind, hybrid solutions, and premium financing. So let's talk a little bit more about digital distribution, because this is, of course, what we're getting into today. So we've seen how the system functions, a couple different ways that agents can interact in our system to find markets, even in a very specific way. But that's kind of a passive way of doing it. It's built, and we're expecting the agent to go do this on their own. I like a more active and a little bit more of an aggressive approach. Of course, I don't like to spam anybody, but what we like to do is make sure people have as much information as they can get, even if they don't realize that this is something that they're looking for, right? So we do our email blast. These are people who have subscribed. That's very important. So they do receive our emails. We have an almost non-existent spam or unsubscribe rate. These agents are really engaged in those emails, which is awesome. We build out landing pages. We're able to connect your landing page to those links, like I mentioned, in our market directory. We also have user groups. This is big. So we have a user group of agents who use Appulate all the time and give us feedback and meet with some of our agent outreach specialists so that we can understand what they're looking for, if they're having any trouble, answering any questions they have. And then every now and then we call on them to test things out, which is great. So if you have a product, you want to bring it on and you don't have any agents, you want some feedback from agents, we're more than happy to provide that. We can put that out there, create a pilot group, let them test it, and get some feedback and adjust if needed. We do a lot of personal outreach. We have agent specialists that call agents all the time, not just cold calls, but we receive a number of different emails and phone calls trying to get help with doing certain things, trying to connect to different markets. So we're constantly utilizing some outreach to let agents know how to do things and help them out. We have a agent premium version of Appulate. So even though they don't have to pay for it, we have Producer Connect Premium, which allows them to pay for certain features, which are kind of above and beyond what may be in the scope of that submission process, which is really great. We have, of course, a blog, social media, YouTube videos, online training and training on demand. So tons of videos, tons of training, tons of content. You'd be able to use all of that. And in certain cases, we're also, we'll customize a lot of that content for you as well. So let's keep on rolling. So one of the things I mentioned earlier that I like to do is I'll send out some sort of study of these agents. I want to get information back from these agents. And we've got thousands of people that are willing to respond. So the last time we did a survey, one of the questions we asked was, what are you looking for from your carrier or MGA? Obviously a very important question. And the answers were very interesting. So I pulled the top 10 because it kind of dropped off after that. And I put a star next to everything I thought Appulate does. And again, this kind of reinforces my beliefs with why I think we should be partners more than a customer and software as a service company. And this is because we can't be successful without you. I can build the best technology platform out there, and if I don't have good products available to agents on there, they're not going to use it. And the other direction is the same thing. You may have great products, but you're not seeing agents accessing them as much, or it takes them a while, or you're receiving a bunch of email to cord forms and it's taking you a while. So lacking that technology can hurt you. And so in this case, yeah, I mean, agents are looking for it too. They want fast quote turnaround, ability to quote online, instant quotes, multiple offers and quotes, automated process. And I'd even argue that we do a lot of personal touch and service too. So if we can match those things alongside competitive quotes, good commission, higher carrier rating, binding authority, or some sort of control in our system like I was showing you, then these agents have no reason to want to use this process. I have a lot of data on these agents. Again, if you ever want to know anything, feel free to reach out to me. I'm extremely transparent. One of the questions here will work, what kind of classes do you write? On the left-hand side is what are you writing currently, and on the right-hand side is what would you like to write more of? So let's say you've got a transportation product that you want to bring on board, and you're doing commercial auto or something similar, and we want to put this out there. Well, I can tell you right away that transportation currently is in the top 10 of things that people want to write, but it's what, 7 down there, and then on the right-hand side, it's number 1. So that's a big deal. That means that these agents are actually looking for this. They're in our system looking for people who can write transportation. If we can throw out an email or do a webinar or something in line with just trying to get this information out there, and we make it very specific about, hey, they've got a transportation program, we know you're looking for this, well, here it is. They get very excited, and we see a huge uptick in usage in our system. Same with lines of business. So again, you guys will, I'll send this PowerPoint slide out in an email after this, and we'll have a recording too if you want to check any of this out. But lines of business, so this one's interesting. The others kind of dropped off after the first 10 or 20. This one doesn't. It's very interesting. We have a lot of lines of business in our system. We've done a little bit of everything. It seems like our agents are very much the same way. So if you're looking for lines of business to add to Appulate and you're asking us, well, what are the agents interested in? Here you go. This is thousands of people responding, telling you exactly what they're looking for. So that's great. Of course, this saves a lot of time for agents. I just kind of stick this in here. This is not really necessarily part of our topic today. But our average agent in our system submits about 40 submissions a month. We want to make sure we get those to you as effectively as possible. So we save them a lot of time. This saves them about 37 minutes per submission. Everybody said different things, everywhere from 15, 20 minutes all the way up to hours and even days. So we're pretty conservative about this at 37 minutes per submission. That's about 25 hours a month, and based on $50,000 a year for the average insurance agent, it translates to about $7,000 a month in savings. Agents are very aware of this. They're very excited about this, and of course they hope to hear about new markets working in the system. But on your side, so here's where it gets really interesting. We talked about how submission activity can just generally increase, but I'll kind of explain why. So right away, markets being selected by agents is arguably the most important piece of data in the slide deck, because it goes beyond just, are they going to submit to you? Are they interested in this line of business? They may say that, but are they actually going in there and selecting these markets in our system? Back in 2017, I started pushing harder on some marketing initiatives where we started putting more resources into digital distribution, putting these products out there, working with some of our partners, especially those who adopt our portal workflow, to put as much information out there as possible, engage with these agents as much as possible. And since then, usage has just skyrocketed. The first thing we noticed is, of course, markets being selected by agents skyrocketed. It's at a consistent 140% increase on a monthly basis. And that's turned out to be 550% increase in markets being selected from what we were doing before, which was great, to something now that is just way beyond what we even thought would happen. And so now Appulate is the #1 choice for a lot of carriers, MGAs, when they're looking for digital distribution. This is a big deal. And login activity to the right of that, this is why we do it. So of course, what do we get out of this? We don't take a cut of any of the commission or anything like that. We make our money from licensing fees, and the only way that we're going to ever do that is by proving that agents use our system. So if we can put a lot of resources into helping you promote your products and programs, we're going to see a benefit of that. We already know that, and that's why it's really important that if I start working with you and talking to you, I want to make sure that this is a really good fit. If we're not a good fit for some reason, I probably know somebody who is. This tech industry is big, but it's small at the same time, and we work with a lot of people in a very friendly way. A lot of them even use Appulate technology as part of their processes. So let's keep rolling here. So webinars, we do a bunch of webinars. I mentioned that before. This is huge. So especially right now, everybody's kind of working from home. We've had a lot of good feedback from just doing webinars in general. Before kind of all this happened, over the last year of 2019, I think it actually ended up going up to about 1,000 attendees. We have about a 50% attendance rate, and that ends up being about 2,500 registrants over just 36 webinars. If you guys did a webinar with us, we put out one of your programs, which we love doing these webinars. We'll have one of our agent specialists on the call. We'll hopefully have one of you on the call to discuss your programs and answer any questions about it. And then our specialists will guide them through the system, how it works, and answer any questions about Appulate. And as you can see, this is very popular, not just with agents, but our MGAs. Volta Insurance, Adam Meyerson from over there said that he was able to get 20 different agency appointments just from a single webinar, which isn't very far-fetched. We've had a lot of folks say very similar things. For email blasts, just to kind of give you an idea, again, a little bit more insight into when I say our email blasts do very well, this kind of gives you an idea. So on the average open rate, by the way, we send out emails to all kinds of folks all over the country across all different types of lines of business and various different workflows. That's a marketing challenge and a half. So we have a whole marketing team that's just devoted to tracking this and trying to produce and strategize for the best content available. So we try to put this together. We try to offer as much help and service to our customers as well, because we want to make sure that you're just as successful. And even with those obstacles in place, our average open rate is about 12%. At best, it's 34%. That's huge. Click rate, 5%. Best is 25%. That's also way above industry standard. For market specific, average monthly submission count, like I mentioned, is 17,000, increased about 245%, and new selection increased 140. I already mentioned that. But here's kind of a breakdown. So this is actually year by year since 2016, just to give you an idea of what the last 4 years have looked like. Last year we had a huge uptick, a lot of folks coming on board, a lot of API builds concluded over the last year from actually end of 2018 all the way through 2019. So we saw a huge, massive increase of usage in our system, which builds a big case. This year it's gone down a little bit as far as those builds, and we have a lot of stuff going on. So I expect this to skyrocket by the end of this year. But just with all the circumstances that we're dealing with right now, just in general, like everyone else is, things are a bit tight. But what's really interesting about that is people are realizing that technology is very important. So even though that's happened, I have been probably busier than I ever have been with trying to put projects together, which just kind of goes to show that this makes a big difference. But our logins every year have broken our previous year's record. We see a lot more activity month after month. Market selected, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, look at June. I don't think we're going to hit that number this year. That's insane. But what happened is we probably brought somebody on who was very big. We put that out there, and of course they adopted their workflow with Appulate, and that makes an enormous difference. But this is market selected month after month each year, and you can see how that's been rising. Appulate submissions, same kind of thing. You know, I don't think any of these data points have showed anything flattening out. This has been very exciting to see us just constantly breaking these records. And although the other two, we haven't seen agents going in and adding new markets as much this year just because of what we discussed, the submission count's increasing. So the markets that they did pick, which by the way, that's another important distinction. An agent can go in and select a market. That doesn't mean that they're going to submit to that market. So this data shows that they are. So they are going in, they are adding these markets when we bring them on board. And then once they select that market, by the way, every single time they do a submission for that line of business, you show up. So if they say, oh, wow, this is great, a commercial auto program, this looks awesome, let me add them. And then when I do a commercial auto submission, I'll try to remember to submit to them. They don't have to try to remember. Each time they do that, it's going to pop up. You'll be there, and they'll be able to add you and fulfill those requirements to submit. So that's, I think, the end of this slide deck. So at this time, I'll take some questions. How to get started? Honestly, let's just schedule a quick call. Let's talk about this, talk about what you're trying to do. Let's set up a demo. Those may be the same call. Let's go through this process specifically for you. Also, digital distribution is different for everybody too. Not only just because of what we may plan to do with you, because there may be different strategies, but ultimately what your goals are. Everybody's different. You may have a very select group of agents and you don't want to expand past that, but you want to get as much information to those agents as possible. We can do that. If you're trying to expand as much as possible and increase your submissions as much as possible, we can try to do that as well. So let's talk about what you're trying to achieve. Then we'll figure out what the best workflow is. What technology are you using? Which products are you trying to bring on board? Let's talk about the scope of work. Take a look at your API if needed, and then we can go through some pricing, and implementation is honestly very, very quick. So it looks like you got a question here. So what is the geographic makeup of where agents are and who they serve across commercial and personal lines? Great question. So when I survey these agents, I'll start with a commercial versus personal, because we've done all kinds of stuff, and we've focused on commercial lines. That's where Appulate is focused. Companies like Vertafore and other folks who do kind of similar things as far as creating kind of a rating platform that connects to carriers and that sort of thing. They've focused primarily on personal lines years ago. We decided to devote ours to commercial lines. Although that's been the case now, it's just everything. We've done everything back and forth, even to pet insurance. So there's really not much we haven't touched. But as far as what the makeup is, it actually kind of follows what the industry is. Agents said that they write about 60% commercial and about 40% personal. And then geographically, it's identical to where you see agents, because again, we've got about 80% of agents. So it's our footprint is nationwide. Our biggest states are in California, Texas. Let me see, actually, if I've got I might even have a stat sheet that shows this, but I don't think it's necessarily ever been surprising. It's kind of, if you were to Google where are agents, well, that's where Appulate agents are as well. So let me see if I can find this though, because I know I have something along these lines. And if I can't pull it up right now, I will certainly be happy to share this with you. Here we go. All right. So let me continue. All right, I know this is probably small and everyone's getting their magnifying glasses out. Let me make this bigger. All right. So this kind of should give you an idea. We've got the state column on the left-hand side, and then in the center we've got how many agencies and then how many users we have. So this should give you a pretty good breakdown. By the way, if you ever want to investigate very specifically how many of your agents in our system, I'm happy to do that. We typically throw an NDA back and forth so that you're able to share your agent list with us. We'll take that agent list to our engineers, and I'll have them pull a list that says how many of your agents that are in our system. And I can probably tell you when the last time it is they used it. We can try to figure out who are big users of Appulate. So if you wanted to reach out to those agents, I'm sure they'll say great things. But here you go. So this should give you an idea. Like I said, California, Texas, Florida. We've got some northeastern states up here with Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. We have a big presence in the southeast as well, thanks to a number of amazing partners, kind of like Mid-Atlantic would be one of them, and they're big in the southeast, a big MGA user of ours. And then, yeah, just kind of a little bit scattered from there. But I'd be happy to share that with you if you'd like. Hopefully that answers the question. Let's see here. Here's my information. Okay, yeah, this is the slide deck. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to add those to the side panel. I'm happy to answer those with whatever remaining time we have. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to shoot an email out to you, so you'll have my contact information as well as a link in my signature line, which will show you my calendar in real time. You can select any time that works for you. I would suggest if you want a demo, select an hour. If you want just a brief phone call, pick 15 minutes, whatever makes sense for you, and I'd be happy to hop on a call. So let's take a look here, see if there are any more questions. I don't see any yet. I'll give you guys a few more minutes if in case you're typing something out. If not, I'll take that as a compliment that I've covered this well. All right, guys. Well, I think I don't see any more questions coming through. So again, feel free to reach out to me if that's not the case. But I really appreciate everyone's time today a whole lot. Hopefully everyone stays safe and well, and I look forward to talking to you. Thank you again.